So today I have an incredible treat with me for my little author talks. I have Tracee Spiby with me to talk about her book, One Hell at a Time. Now Tracee is a little bit extra special for me because one, she's in the room with me, so that makes it super cool. And two, we're actually part of the same writers group, Golden Valley Writers Group. So it's really cool to support a local author, a friend, and talk amazing books. Tracee's book is a little bit different than the earlier ones I've done, which have been in the fantasy realms and the speculative fiction. But this is a historical novel inspired by her granddad's war letters. It centers around Albi Spiby's experience as an Australian soldier in World War II. Tracee, say hi.
World War One for this one. World War Two's coming up.
Yes.
Because the silly old bugger,
Yes.
he wasn't content with just doing one war. He did both.
He did both. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should know that.
Yeah, technically, he was underage in the First World War. He enlisted 2 weeks after his 18th birthday, and that was in March, his birthday, and the age limit didn't drop not to 19 until June. So technically, he was underage, but not quite. So he got in, and then when it come to the Second World War, he in 1940 he enlisted, or he volunteered. He lied about his age, said he was younger than he was, and he enlisted, or volunteered I should say, for the Second World War and ended up in Changi. So this is the first book, and this one is about his experiences in the First World War.
And that's pretty common from what I understand. A lot of, particularly Australians, but I've heard other stories that, men, they lied to be older and they lied to be younger to do their duty.
Yep.
As at the time, that was patriotism, wasn't it? It was what we saw ourselves as a...
Particularly in the First World War, back in the 20s and before the 20s, I should say, it was very much king and country. Most of the Australians that were here in Australia, they weren't actually Australian; they were mostly Poms.
Yeah.
So it was very much a matter of king and country. And he was one of 4 boys, and he was the eldest. And all 4 boys actually enlisted. 2 of them were underage, and one of them was 14 and 5 months when he put on a uniform.
Yeah.
So, and parents knew they were lying.
But like you said, it was that was the era of the time, king and country, and World War One particularly forged Australia as a nation. We were still very young back then, and that's a lot of our identity as Australia is built around our diggers and our
the
servicemen.
history and what they did, definitely.
And the cool thing about this book, and is that you don't glorify. That's one thing I loved as reading it. You don't glorify war. This is an account of the hardship and the struggle, and hence the name One Hell at a Time.
The idea, or not the idea, but I was really proud that book actually tells the experiences of an ordinary man, and there was thousands and thousands of ordinary Australians that went along and volunteered. We all read about so many books about the heroes and the VC winners and the big battles, but there's never very much been written just about the ordinary blokes, the supply lines, the ones that were, just the cooks and the tunnellers and all that sort of thing. And this one I was able to, by following my grandfather, Albi Spiby, I was actually able to also follow some of the others. Because what actually helped as well was I'm lucky that my grandmother is very much a hoarder, and she not only kept all the letters from him in the Second World War, but she also kept the 46th Battalion little booklets that they wrote every year, and it was like an invitation to a Remembrance Day, service. And in each of the booklets, they would do an honour roll of who had died during the year and encourage people to go to the next reunion. And the 2 that she'd kept were the year he died in 64 and also 65, because in 64, the secretary of the 46th Battalion Association actually mentioned that he had died and how sad it was and talked about him. And then in the next one, the next following year, a lot of the members that were with him in the 46th Battalion wrote in to say what sort of a bloke he was. And that's also how I was able to find out and figure out through these two little booklets who his mates were in the 46 and who he was with. And some of the anecdotes that they told in their little booklets are in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of them I thought, really? Because I'd say it and I'd see the person's name, and then I'd go hunting through the National Archives and get that particular military history out, and I was able to then build a story around that character and put it in there. So a lot of the things that are in there you might think are fiction actually aren't, and some of them are the ones that you think, really? But yeah.
I think that's one of the things that struck me is it seemed fanciful at times, but because I know you know, we've sat in writers group meetings and you told us stories about your research and things like that. We knew it wasn't.
Yeah, and that's what blew me away, and that's why it probably ended up being a lot bigger than it was supposed to be, because the more I researched, the more I found out. I think, no way, you can't do that, did not happen, no, you couldn't do that. And I went through boxes and boxes and boxes of tissues and just pure, really? And I had to actually go back and cut back on some of the emotion that I was writing in, because you can really tell, I believe, not so much as you could in the first few drafts, of just how angry I was when I read what they had done to these people, these men that volunteered to serve. They just treated them like cannon fodder. I mean, that's a term, but each one of those people were a person with a family, with a mother and a father and kids and people that mattered to them. And most have no known graves, they have no nothing, but they didn't care. And that's why I'd get a bit sidetracked, because when I would read something I get really upset about, for example, with the first day of the war, the Western Front, the Somme offensive, the 1st of July, when I found out about the Pels brigades, the English, and what happened to them, I thought, it blew me away. And that's why there's quite a bit on that, even though it was nothing to do with the 46th Battalion. It gave an insight to me into what sort of mindset and people those that were leading our men, what they thought of them. Nothing. Just class, they're just nothing, don't worry about them. And they just killed them.
And that's, for people out there, the British military hierarchy regarded the Australian infantry as literally just tools to be used.
It wasn't just the Australian infantry. They treated their own men just as bad, because England has very much in that time had a class system, and the ordinary working man, they were the lowest of the lot, and the generals and the powers that be, they were from the hierarchy. They were the ones that had the King's Commissions, and they're the ones that had the people in the know that knew them. They were and they had no idea, nothing about the others, and they just didn't respect them. It was very much power structures. That's whatever the right word is.
The aristocracy, I think.
Yeah. It's just appalling.
And so what you did really well as a reader is deep dive that and really understood that and showed that side of it. As like you said, that was the ordinary soldier. It's not the heroes. It's not the, they were heroes. Of course they were heroes, but it wasn't glorified in that sort of sense.
They never won any extra medals. They weren't VC winners, so they didn't get any. Weren't mentioned in dispatches or anything else. They were just men. Just
the men on the front line that. Yeah.
These ones. That's the whole thing. A lot has been written about the men on the front line, but not the ones behind the service corps.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't very often on the front line. He was taking supplies to the front line. He would have to actually, or not just him, but others as well. You've got your troops on the front line, but then you've got to have somebody taking them the grenades, taking them the food, taking them the bullets, taking them the cup of tea, taking them whatever else that they needed, and the wire and stuff. And he would be one of those. And there's a section in there where it actually talks about taking the stuff in and what it was like, because it was pretty horrendous.
Yeah.
Because that's also what I did in doing it, as I read all of the battalion histories, the war diaries. They're all there online. It's amazing what you can find online, I'm telling you. And I read through all them to find out exactly where the 46th Battalion were at each month and each whatever. And then I would match it up then with where my grandfather was there at the same time. So then I was able to actually then craft it around what was going on and then put the personal part into it. So what I did to keep that in mind too is I actually printed out a monthly calendar from 1915, 16, 17, 18 and 19, and I mapped out all the battles, and then I matched up to where he was and where he wasn't. And if he wasn't somewhere, I would use his brother who was with him, but not, he was in the 46th Battalion, but not always with him because he got sent off a couple of times to the 12th. But I could also use people whose other military histories I'd read that were in the 46th but got seconded, or whatever the word was then, to the tunnelling company or the Air Force, not the Air Force, the air wing, or the tunnelling, the air, and there was another one that I actually was able to, and they were real people. Like the guy that I talk about in there about the tunnelling, what it was like, he was really big. He's a real bloke.
Yeah.
They're real. I think, yeah. So, but in doing that, you're able to actually then put yourself into their head and what it was like for them to actually be laying on your back in complete darkness, trying to dig with your feet while you're listening for the enemy who's also digging just near you, and what that must have been like, knowing that any minute you could be blown to smithereens. And it was really about trying to put yourself into their boots,
yeah.
which was quite interesting at times.
Which is what great historical writers do. The amount of research, and then to not, or just take facts and humanise them.
Yep.
It's
yep.
not an easy skill.
Put a person there in that position when you have got shells and bits of bodies being blown towards you, and watching your mate beside you get blown to smithereens, and what was that really like? You see pictures, I'm quite sure most people that have seen anything to do with the First World War would have seen pictures of the duck boards and the fields at Passchendaele. Well, to actually look at the pictures and then put yourself into that scenario and feel the cold, feel the mud, feel the desperation, feel the men beside you that are also feeling it, and just try to actually work through what it must have been like. And it's not just them, it's also like with Albi. He was a driver of horses and mules, so they all got the animals to look after. No one ever thinks about the animals and how many of them got killed and blown up and all the rest, and they still had to be fed and watered, and every time they moved they had to go to and find a new spot for them and all the rest.
Yeah, it's amazing, because especially World War One, we think of modern warfare, but World War One was like the invention of modern warfare, I suppose you'd say, because it began with cavalry charges on horseback, and then by the end of it was tanks.
Yep.
And
it was amazing how many times I wrote, this was the biggest barrage ever, and a battle, and then you go to the next battle. This was the biggest barrage ever, with more bombs blown. Then you go to the next battle. This was the biggest barrage ever, and it was, I think I used the term in there somewhere about how this war has really increased the way that man can murder and kill it and maim each other. It's just really blew it aside.
Yeah, the level of destruction.
Yeah. And just bigger and better bombs and bigger and better gas and bigger and better planes and bigger and better everything. It was just appalling.
Yeah, and we don't learn as humans. We don't learn. We learn the opposite lesson, don't we? We learn, well,
20 years later there's another war.
Yeah, we can be more destructive, we can be more...
Yep.
So when did the idea to write this story come about?
Well, because I was given this tub of memorabilia of the letters that Pa wrote. In the book he's called Albi because he was called Albi in their 46th Battalion little notebooks. They called him Albi, and they talked about it. Albi did this and whatever. That's why it's Albi. But I've got the letters that he wrote from Malaya and Singapore in 1941, 42 to his wife Belle. I've even got the first letters he wrote. The first letter he wrote was on the troop ship going to Singapore. The last letter he wrote was on the hospital ship going home.
Yeah.
He spent the war in Changi. But because I had those letters, and I thought, this is ridiculous, I started to transcribe them, because there's boxes of them. I've got literally boxes. There's hundreds.
Yeah.
There's even the postcards that he was allowed to send with the Japanese stamps on them. Anyway, because I had them, I started to transcribe them, and I was thinking, you know what, this is just ridiculous. This is too good. What he's done, I need to write it down properly. So I was going to do one book, two wars, from the Somme to Singapore. And when I thought I've got to do, initially it was only going to be for family. I had no intentions of taking it anywhere else, but I didn't know. I've got no writing background. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a creative artist and all the rest of it that a lot of people seem to be able to do. And so I joined a course called Write Your Book in a Year with Hazel Edwards, a children's author who wrote all those Hippo books, etc.
Which for my non-Australian friends, Hazel Edwards is, yeah, and her there's a hippopotamus on my roof eating cake.
Yep.
Is Australian book folklore. She's amazing.
Folklore. She's
Yeah.
incredible. That Hippo book's turned 50 the other day.
Yeah, so that's how long they've been around.
Yeah, they're very big.
And very accomplished writer across many genres and many
Yep.
things. She's an amazing
Not just
lady.
children's books.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so I joined that course, and it was supposed to be, write your book in 12 months. And I got to I think it was 1917, and I was in about July of that year. And I had to get to 1945 in, 4 months? So it wasn't going to happen. So hence I had to focus on the one book to start with because of the research. I just get, once you start researching, you just get bogged in it. You just got to find out more about each thing. And then I got bigger than just, because it was sort of also like for family history in a way.
Yeah.
But then I got bigger than that. I was thinking, I actually sent it to somebody to read when it was a manuscript, when it was done, and like an assessor. And I said, what do you think, type thing. And she said, because I said it's for the family, blah, blah. And she sort of said, I think it'd be more people than just your family would be interested in this.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, really? She said, I think so, yes. Anyway, cut a long story short, it was re-edited and done, and actually anyone that writes a book, the first draft is the easy part, I'm telling you. It's the easy part. It's everything else that comes after it that takes... Anyway, so it got sent off, or through her, it was sent off to lots of different traditional publishers. And I got some lovely feedback, really good, story well worth writing, you must tell this, it's well written, it's fantastic, it's blah, 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 but not the right disc. And also that book doesn't, because when I was writing it, with no writing background, I didn't know what I was doing. And I crossed bridges that you're not supposed to cross, and I wrote it in ways that you're not supposed to do, apparently. So it doesn't really fit in any genre. And they'd say it's great, but doesn't quite fit. So the historic people said, no, but it's too much fiction. The fiction people said, no, it's too much fact. And it was kind of just didn't fit anywhere. And I've forgotten the question that you asked me, but I ended up self-publishing.
Yeah.
Because I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to do this anyway. So I did it myself.
That's that's where you sort of stumbled upon GV Writers Group, where we meet.
Yeah.
And yeah, Tracee had this idea, this massive box of letters, and just trying to sort of figure her way through it. And that's kind of a funny lesson, like for someone like myself who just had story ideas and then decided to be a writer. Then you've got other people that are trained. Like, I'm not trained. I'm just bumbling through, and now I'm a journalist. Don't even ask me how I got there. It's just I bumbled my way through that. But you really just inherited a gift and thought, there's something here.
Yep.
I'm going to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would never ever. I still blush when I say that I'm an author, because I don't regard myself as an author.
Yeah.
I just don't. I've got that, and now the pressure's on to do the next one, because I've had a lot of positive feedback, which I was really you like it? Oh. Thank you.
And that's a thing of modesty, because it's definitely worth reading. If you're into World War One history, or even if you're not from the Australian side, like it's applicable to British and US history. anyone that's a war buff, there's a lot of really interesting facets of this book that will appeal to you. Like, it's incredible, the detail in that. And I was just reading Neil Smith, the retired lieutenant colonel who helped you with your research.
No, he didn't.
Like,
That's
pointing in the right
That's
direction.
another funny story. No, when I first started Family History many years ago, I contacted, because I couldn't get to Canberra, because this is before anything was online.
Yeah.
I couldn't get to Canberra, and I came across, or they gave me a list of different researchers, and I picked this bloke. Oh, yeah, you'll do. So I hired him to do some research on Albert to see what he'd been up to.
Yeah.
That's okay. That was back in the 80s. And he sent me the stuff. That's all fine. And then when I was doing this, the guy that wrote the 46th Battalion's actual regimental history, I got onto him, and he suggested, why don't you talk to this chap Smith, who happens to be he's a researcher, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, yeah, righto, which I tend to do. Yeah. So I did. And then when he started talking and he sent me the business card, I thought, hang on a minute. Because I assumed he was probably dead by then, because it was years ago. And it turned out it was the same bloke. It was him. And when I started telling him about who Albert was, he vaguely remembered it, because Spivey is not a common name. Yeah. And it was the same bloke.
Yeah.
So he was there. But he didn't do the research.
No, I know you did the research, but
he did it way back. But he wasn't. When I go back in the documents, or it's only the 2 pages that he gave me, a lot of that I was able to find out myself anyway.
Okay.
But it was still the fact that he was there, and he wrote it. I asked him if he would have a look at it, mainly to make sure I hadn't got any really big faux pas with regard to military and what actually happened. I thought, I need to get a military person to double check this. I don't want to be taken out and shot type thing for whatever. So I sent it to him. I said, would you mind? And he charged me, but I don't care. So to check it, which he did, and he come back and he said, yeah, no, basically said it's really good. I went, what? Yeah. And then I thought, I got a bit cheeky. I thought, well, maybe I could ask him to come to the launch.
Yes.
When you're desperate, you tend to get a bit cheeky.
Yeah.
And he came. And what he wrote asked him to write the foreword for the book, and what he wrote, I thought, when I read, I thought, he must be reading the wrong book, because, what it was so glowing. I thought, wow.
And
really cool.
He was. He was at your launch, which I was fortunate enough to attend, and so was Hazel Edwards, which was another massive coup. And he did. He had a lot of really positive, and described it as one of the most realistic, I think was what he said.
Well, I actually put some of what he said in the foreword on there.
Yeah, never before have I read such a truthful, detailed and graphic account of life in and out of the trenches of Australian infantry. Like,
that's pretty cool.
That's, Lieutenant Colonel Neil Smith, AM retired. The man knows his stuff. So that's big praise. And that's, I think, for us fiction writers don't understand. You want details in your story to be right. You want it to sound realistic. You want things to match up, and it doesn't matter what genre you write. If you've built a world, if it's contemporary fiction, stuff happened now, stuff happened in 10 years ago, or it's completely made up fantasy or sci-fi, you want it to be all match up. But when you're really delving into history writing, particularly in this sort of field, like you say, where it's, military factor, it's got to be specific, it's got to be right, you don't want to mess anything up. You really got to know your stuff, and your research, and you nailed that from all accounts.
Because actually it's interesting, I had another chap that I was in another writing group with, and he was going through some of the first chapters, and he was very much into aircraft and the air wars and that sort of thing. And when I sent him the chapter on the Red Baron, I had written. He came back and said, "No, you have to change it," because I said that Albi and the others saw when they saw a parachute come down from the plane after it'd been shot, they all cheered. And he said, no, he said the British didn't have parachutes. They felt that the powers that be felt that the planes were too expensive to give the men parachutes, so they didn't. They figured therefore they would be more careful in getting the plane down. So I had to change it in that, but you've got to make sure that little thing like saying that, you've got to.
That.
Yep. You've got to be so careful you get your facts right and your times and what have you.
Yeah, and for an average reader like myself, I wouldn't know that.
No.
Most of the readers wouldn't, but there are the people that do.
That would. There'd be someone that would know, and they'd say, she's wrong, therefore the whole book's useless.
Yeah, and I even know Fiona McIntosh, incredible Australian writer, or Australian-British writer, world-renowned for a thing, talked about in one of her historical fiction novels that, yeah, someone picked her up on that, and then they had to re-change the next batch of printing. And yeah, because people out there know. So if you're writing historical events, do your research.
Yeah.
Know your world, basically.
Know your world, yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, once you got that research and started looking into it, I mean, the internet's a wonderful thing nowadays.
It's amazing what you can find on it. I don't know how many hours and days and weeks and months I spent looking at a computer screen. It's just...
How much do you know about this subject that didn't make?
Oh, yeah, there's more.
Like, 300 pages worth of book.
There's more. Yeah, there would be more.
Yeah.
But the thing is, as you go on, after a while you move on to something else. And now I'm moving on to research in the Second World War. So a lot of what's happened in there, the extra bits and pieces, you half remember, half don't.
Yeah.
And I was flicking through it before I had to do this. I thought, I forgot about that bit. Oh, yeah, I remember writing that now. And you write it and you move on. I remember I was listening to Marg Hickey at a talk once, and she was saying she'd written another book, and they were asking about it first. She said, I really couldn't tell you what it was about, really, because that was done and dusted, that's been done, and now I've moved on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, yeah, that's... Okay, to a very small degree I can attest to that, because in my job I have to research certain stories from a journalist job, and the amount of weird stuff I've known and forgotten about water rights and things like that.
Yeah.
To write, 300 words that no one read. So.
And that's the thing. When researching, if I'd found something interesting, I'd think, do I put it in or not? And I'd ask people what they think. I said, well, if you find it interesting, other people will too. So you'd write it up, and then you think, well, I can always cut it out. That's why there's a lot about the Spanish flu, there's a lot about the conscription, there's a lot about the Red Baron, there's a lot about the Pals Brigades, all sorts that I found really fascinating. And it wasn't directly involved, but it was involved. So it's good fun.
It's all part of the story.
Yeah.
So do you have files or something like that at home?
I've got books. Not as big as yours, or as impressive as your bookshelf.
But of snippets of information, like... Yeah.
And I've got a lot of the historic books. I've got like Bean's book, and I've got anything that was really worth buying. Because first of all, I'd borrow them from the library. Yeah. And then if they were really good, I'd go and buy them.
Yeah. And
usually have to hunt them down because they're historic old books and they're not easy to find sometimes.
No, that's that's the joy of book hunting, but that's another.
Yeah. But I couldn't tell you the ins and outs and the blow-by-blow account of the First World War. All I did was follow the 46th Battalion. So I don't know what the 10th Battalion were doing over there, and I don't know what the 3rd Division were doing. Well, I know what the 3rd Division were doing partly, but I was following him. It's not a blow-by-blow account of the war. It just follows one man and gives a very personal account of his experiences in the war. So it's not the whole shebang. There's other books out there that are a lot better than that you can read to find out.
Yeah, but I think is what appeals. That's what I enjoyed about it. It was centered purely around this humanized story of hell. War is hell. There's like we glorify it in movies and that, but it's not the reality. So after we sort of center around Albi's and the First War, what next for him and his story? Because he's like you said, he has a big story.
He was in both wars. I've started on the second book. I'm sort of, because I've got the letters for the second book, it's got to be different to the first book, because the first book I was able to make up the letters and take him and make him do whatever I wanted to do. Whereas in this book, I've got the letters. And so the letters are absolutely brilliant. They really are. So I've got all them about what he was doing in Malaya, and up until the last letter that he wrote to his wife was on the 4th of February 1942, just before the capitulation. So it covers past It covers past the actual when the war started, but it also gives you an insight into what he was telling his wife about what to do in Melbourne. Like one of the letters, he's telling her to get the two boys to build a slit trench in the backyard in Melbourne and how it was. And he's talking about, well, if the children have to get sent away, because they lived in Melbourne, in Brunswick, if the children have to get sent away up to the country, so be it. Because I didn't realise how fearful Australia was that they were next.
Yeah.
Big time, big time. So this book is going to also not just have about Albert, but it's also going to have about Belle's perspective as well, his wife in Melbourne, so what was going on in Australia. And then so I've got part one in my head, and then the next problem that I've got is there are no letters from when he was actually in Changi.
Yeah.
Because he was, he was there from the start. But I have found out a lot about what he was doing, which was more than what I had realised to start with, to get the people there. Anyway, so the research on that one has definitely started. There's also a lot of procrastination going on, which I have to admit. Procrastination being so bad that this year, because what I'm doing as well with this is I have been able to research and find out the men that were with him in the company, same as I sort of did for the first one, because he was in the 4th Reserve Motor Transport Company, and that company had A section, B, D and E sections. He was in B section, and I've been able to figure out through the war diaries and the regimental history who was in B section, and I know what happened to them all.
Yeah, right.
Who died, who didn't die, who got sent to Thailand, who got sent to Sandakan, etc., etc. And so what I was doing is actually, as a form of procrastination in a way, I went this year to Malaya, Singapore and Thailand to see on a battlefields tour, which there's not very many of, to see where Pa was and what he was doing. And I also went up, he didn't go on the Thai-Burma Railway, but his mates did.
Yeah.
So I was also up at the Kanchanaburi Cemetery and walked along the railway and really got into that. And then I found the graves of his mates in Kanchanaburi, and I was able to send photos of that, and also I was able to pay my respects to them. So that was in Singapore, Malaya and Thailand. And so in Singapore we got to see where the Japs were, went to Fort Canning and saw where the whole, how it all panned out. And then also some of his mates that were with him, they got sent to Borneo, to Sandakan. So I went to Borneo, as you do.
As you do.
But what I did in Borneo was I actually, Lynette Silver is the person to know about Borneo Sandakan. She runs a tour, and it's a 6-day trek. So I did a 6-day trek in the jungles of mountains of Borneo, following the Sandakan Death March.
Yeah.
95 kilometres over 6 days, up Mount Kinabalu, up mountains, through streams, following where they went. We couldn't go the whole way because most of it is now plantation or roadworks is just gone. But to actually follow what they did, because I'm not sure if you know much about it, but in Sandakan, the Japs had decided, I shouldn't tell you this because you'll have to read the next book when I do it, but the Japs were going to kill basically all the prisoners, every one of them, and they had plans to do so. They had their documents to say, yep, get rid of the whole lot. In Sandakan and Borneo, they did. The only ones that survived out of over 2,000, there were 6 that escaped, that they were supposed to be dead, 6 out of 2,000, and a few of the officers got sent to a different prison in Borneo, but in a different, at Kuching. They survived, and another couple that got sent back to Singapore and ended up in Outram Road Jail, which was pretty bad. But the Japs murdered 2,000 blokes between Sandakan and Ranau. The ones that actually made the march, they shot anyway.
Yeah.
And they starved them, and it is absolutely horrific. So I want to be able to put in a bit about Borneo and a bit about what happened to the other people or the other men that got sent to these other places.
Yeah.
And it's just terrible. And then not that long ago, was only would have been late last year, early this year, I was handed another box of letters. And these letters were the letters that Grandma had sent to Pa when he was a prisoner, and they were returned to sender.
Yeah.
So she continued to write to him every week till about April or more, and the letters are absolutely heartbreaking. And in the box were also some letters that were written to him by some of his mates. One that had been sent to Japan. He said, I'm finally back now, but I had a bit of a shock when I got home, found out the missus died back in 44. Another one's wife had left, and yeah. So I don't know where I'm going to end this book. I think there's a
third book coming. I think that's what we've just heard. There's a third book coming.
Just amazing anyway. You don't start research, because once you do, you're lost.
Another friend of mine is planning on writing historical fiction. She said that she got so lost in the
You've got to be able to pull it back and say no and set your limits. That's why that is only, because I was going to do it on all the boys, because they all were amazed in what the four brothers did, and I thought, no, you can't do that. Pull it back, one person, one more, see what happens, and just stick to that. And so if anyone that's interested in doing it, you got to do it, but just set yourself some limits.
Yeah. And be prepared for long hours going through old documents, old books.
But that's the part I loved.
Yeah.
That's the part I absolutely loved. I'd read the old books and the war histories, because it's written in a different style, and it's just so different.
Yeah.
It's just, I absolutely love reading all the old documents and all the old diaries. It's amazing how many diaries you can find online.
Yeah.
Plus, I used to spend a lot of time in Canberra at the War Memorial as well. But that's the part I loved. Really loved the research.
Yeah. So, one hell at a time while we wait for you to get your bum into gear and stop procrastinating. But I won't lecture you because I'm not in a strong position on that one at the moment for the non-procrastination. Yeah. Where do we find One Hell at a Time?
Well, you can get that if you're anyone in this local area. You can get it at Collins Bookstore. You can get it at the Royal Historical Society Victoria in Melbourne. You can get it at most libraries around here, or if you haven't, just at your library you can ask for it and I'll get it in for you. It's available at the Australian War Memorial in Canberra, and you can also contact me. I have a website, and contact me and I can organise you to get your book directly as well.
And for my overseas friends too, it's also available on Amazon.
Yep,
and
it's available on Amazon as an e-book and as a hard copy.
Yeah, so, definitely...
Not just Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, it was the whole works of jerks.
So, pretty much anywhere you can buy ebooks and get print-on-demand copy, you're going to be able to find this incredible book. And it is, like I said, I'm not a big World War I, World War II history reader, but I love this book. And it was the human side of it, the human element of the book that took you out of the glorification of war and really put you in the nitty gritty of what it was like in the trenches for servicemen that, enlisted.
Blood and guts and all, basically.
Yeah, that thought they were doing, the call went up and they answered the call, not to seek glory, it wasn't, to marketed now, I guess you'd say, or how war is, we think of as flashy and exciting. It was a duty that they responded to, and One Hell of a Time really sums up what we put these young men through in war. Thank you very much, Tracee, for coming and joining me.
It's been good. Sorry, I tend to waffle, but I do.
Which I love. As someone talking books, I'm happy to listen to anyone waffle about their book. This is really special. I've actually written a couple of stories for my local paper for Tracee about her book. So this is just another way to celebrate a friend and her incredible work and her incredible book. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you, Aaron. It's been great.
And thank you guys for
listening. Yes.
I hope if you're interested, reach out and find her. One Hell of a Time, Tracee Spiby.
Yeah, Tracee at traceespivy.com.au.
Which I'll try and drop the link in the video, as someone else suggested to me I need to start doing. So I'll try and do that so you can can find her easily. Happy reading. Subscribe and follow for more.